welcome back to the CoolFigurez channel. I'm your host, Jesse the Bat Madrigal, aka the Buff Collector. The information on this channel is intended for adult collectors and not children. And welcome to episode 42 of Coffee and, well, Toys, guys. Obviously, as you guys can see, there's no toy haul this week. We'll get into that once we get to that point of the show. But of course, we will discuss this week's Coffee and Toys Live, future Coffee and Toys Live guests, this week's toy news, and so much more. But first, if you're new, then welcome. This channel is all about cool action figures, analyzing them, hunting them, taking pics of them, and of course, playing with them. If that's your sort of thing, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button? And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and hit that bell notification icon so you stay notified when I do upload new content. If you do enjoy this video or any other videos that I put out, please remember to give them a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. With all of that out of the way, guys, once again, welcome to episode 42 of Coffee and Toys here on the CoolFigurez channel. So yes, like I said, no weekly toy haul this week, as you guys can see. Once again, we'll talk about that when we get to that point in the show. But of course, as always, we start off with Coffee and Toys Live. So let's go ahead and discuss this week's show. Once again, I would like to thank this week's guest, Angi. I really do appreciate you coming on the show, being the first female toy collector on the show as well, and giving your perspective as being a female toy collector and also a fan of Marvel and pop culture and stuff like that. She has a very interesting story of how she got into Marvel collecting hot toys. So definitely stay tuned to the end of this episode to watch that interview in full. But yeah, we had a great conversation, had a great time talking with her. It was really great to have a different perspective on the toy collecting community. Our community is such a male dominant community, much like sports and cars and stuff like that. It was really cool and interesting to talk to someone that has an outside perspective, and it was, like I said, she has an interesting way of how she got into it, because a lot of us guys, we grew up with this stuff. This was stuff we watched as a kid, got into as kids, and with her it was a completely different way. So it's very interesting how she got into it. So definitely, like I said, stay tuned to the end of this episode where this week's episode of Coffee and Toys Live will be. So once again, thank you so much to this week's guest, Angi. I really do appreciate you coming on to the show. And with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and discuss some future guests for Coffee and Toys Live. This coming week, we'll see the return of fan favorite Rocco the Great. My lives with Rocco the Great always hit higher numbers than any of my live streams, so I assume that he is a fan favorite, or at least maybe his fans just appreciate and enjoy whenever he goes live, so wherever he goes live, they just follow. Either way, I appreciate you guys checking out my channel, checking out my show, and like I said, he'll be back next week for Wednesday's show. Following that, the following week, I will have Mandy Lynn on the show, a Canadian toy collector. So super excited to talk to her as well. Once again, a different perspective on the community with her being a female, obviously. And then the week after her, I will be speaking to the one and only Sergeant Bananas. I cannot wait to speak with him. Once again, always get excited to talk to toy photographers because I always learn some new stuff from them, and it's always exciting for that reason, because I am a toy collector, but I am also a toy photographer. So, in speaking with these toy photographers, I always learn some great stuff from them, and, stuff that I start to implement in my own toy photography, which I really do see improving my toy photography. A lot of these techniques and stuff that I ask these questions and get answers for, thankfully, a lot of these toy photographers are very gracious to share their thoughts, share their secrets, and share their process of how they come about these photos. And that is just amazing in my opinion. I absolutely love that. They don't gatekeep, they don't hide anything. Well, I'm sure they keep a few secrets close to the chest, but for the most part, they're pretty open. And like I was saying, actually in my conversation with Angi in this week's Coffee and Toys Live, I found that the toy community is very, very open and welcoming. No matter how many followers people have, they are always honored and humbled and willing to come onto the show, which surprises me because I am a tiny page compared to these people that have a few thousand followers and stuff. I only have maybe 1,200 at most. So that, really makes me feel great that they appreciate me asking them to be on my show just as much as I appreciate them taking time out of their busy day, their busy schedule to come on to my show and talk some toys, talk some toy photography, and teach me a thing or two about toy photography. But yeah, after Sergeant Bananas, we will be speaking to one other female collector, Janine. And then after that, I pretty much am just waiting on some confirmations. But yeah, super excited to talk to her as well. She's a very unique collector. She collects Lego, Funko, action figures, and a few other surprises, so stay tuned for that one as well. Like I said, after her I am waiting on a few date confirmations, so just stay tuned for that. I will update you guys on my story on my Instagram at CoolFigurez. So that is it for this week's Coffee and Toys Live, guys. So why don't we go ahead and talk about this week's toy haul, or lack thereof, and it's for a number of reasons, guys. One being, I really haven't gone to Target and Walmart. I went the other day because I had seen a figure that I want, start to hit stores, specifically Walmart's. We'll go ahead and discuss that later on in the toy news section of this video. But yeah, they didn't have it, and so I haven't gone to Target lately in a while. So it's just, I'm not really hunting anything. There's really nothing out that I want currently. I mean, there's maybe one or two things, but it's honestly with these price increases. And the other thing is, I just got into Hot Toys, and when you get into a new line, you sink some cash, but when you get into Hot Toys, guys, you really sink some cash into them. So that's kind of put a hold on my spending as well. I've really been having to watch my spending in terms of toys and stuff, because I decided to invest in these pieces and stuff. So honestly, guys, I have to admit, I think the channel is going to be changing just a little bit. And you know what? I've been meaning to discuss this with you guys, so I guess now is as good a time as ever. So with these price increases and honestly kind of just lack of figures out and about that I actually want, it's going to be very difficult for me to upload a new video every single day of the week, Monday through Thursday, and then Friday for behind the scenes toy photography. Obviously the podcast can go up every week, but it's seeming like after I burn through all my backup videos and everything, this channel is gonna change in two ways. The first one being, reviews are just going to be whenever I get a new figure, whether it's in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. It's just going to be whenever I get a new figure. However, I have a plan, and I have some stuff in mind to help keep you guys satiated while I am, in between toy reviews and whatnot. So I decided to start doing, I know it's cliche and everything, but the cliche top 10 list, guys. And it's just because, I've worked so hard to build up this channel and to connect with you guys, and I don't really just want to go dark, and I really do appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to watch my channel, and I want to keep continuing to provide you guys with great content to entertain you guys, to keep you guys, busy, whether you're doing homework or cleaning or whatever it is you want to just listen in. So I will be doing top 10 list. I have a few in mind, like my personal top 10 favorite Black Series. I would be doing top 10, Jedi Black Series, Sith Black Series, Trooper Black Series, clone, you know what I mean? Different kind of lists like that, but also like Mezco lists, different lists like that. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to rack my brain really to see and think of what I can come up with for you guys. So if you guys have any idea of what you guys want more from my channel, let me know. I was also thinking maybe doing more in-depth behind the scenes toy photography videos, like more like just setting up a single shot from start to finish, and like just running you guys through it from start to finish, like exactly start to finish. That way it's one video per image, but it's going to be really in-depth. It'll give you guys a lot of details. I'll go really in depth in my process. I'll literally be talking throughout the setup and everything to you guys. And so let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys would be interested in that. But yeah, like I said, I'm having to shift and make some changes, but don't think that I'm just completely abandoning my channel. It's just, with the economy the way it is, with inflation the way it is, with toy prices the way they are, and toy quality the way it is, I'm not really seeing, the good trade-off unless you're buying premium figures at this point. So I'm more in that mindset now where I may just save my money for premium figures and kind of just pass up on, like, the big box store figures, you know what I mean? That's just me, but that's just where my collecting is now shifting, so I would like to have a lot more Hot Toys in my collection now. Unfortunately, like, you buy one, they don't do it. You buy one And, like, once again, like me and Angi were talking, if you're not a hot toy collector, you hear it all the time. Hot toy this, hot toy that, hot toy this, hot toy that. And you're just like, shut the fuck up. We get it. It's a cool figure. Like, okay, whatever. Then you buy your first fucking hot toy, and then you can't fucking shut up about it. And in your mind, every chance you get, every time you get a little bit of extra cash, you're just like, why don't you look up some hot toys, see if you can get a nice deal and stuff. And so, yeah, definitely don't buy a hot toy if that's you, and that's how you go in terms of like your thought process and mentality. But yeah, so the channel's gonna be shifting just slightly. Like I said, I do have some backup videos still ready to go, so those will be going up soon. But I believe I only have about maybe 3 weeks of backup videos. Actually, I will be getting in one new figure this weekend, so I may be throwing that up on Monday if I have the time. But also the pink skulls should be coming in soon, because they were a buy it now option and not a pre-order. So those will be coming out pretty soon. I want to say within the next month we should be seeing them shipped to people and stuff. So those will be reviewed soon, hopefully. Other than that, I don't think I necessarily have anything coming in terms of pre-orders, or I've ordered anything that I want. A lot of these things, I'll be honest now, deciding to wait to find in stores. For a long time we were all facing that issue of distribution. If we didn't pre-order it, we weren't going to find it in stores, we weren't going to find it at retail. But it seems like now it's getting a little better. Obviously not every line, Black Series. But like, say, McFarlane, I feel like you don't really have to pre-order those anymore, because they eventually just hit stores massively and then just hit clearance. So there are a few mega figure McFarlane figures that I do want, like the Croc, Man Bat, but I'll be waiting till I find those in store so I can just pick them up then and there. But like, NECA hasn't really released anything right now that I'm currently looking for. So I will still continue to collect NECA, especially the Back to the Future line and certain portions and lines from NECA. Obviously not everything NECA, but yeah, times are changing, as Bob Dylan said once, and just gotta go with it sometimes. So with that being said, guys, that wraps up this week's toy haul, and I guess the channel update that kind of just came about because of the lack of toy haul. So with that being said, guys, why don't we go ahead and move on into this week's toy news, because there is actually quite a bit. So starting off, talking about NECA, let's go ahead and talk some NECA news. So remember I mentioned that I hit Walmart recently, I think yesterday, because I had seen that a figure was hitting stores now. Well, it is the Walmart exclusive NECA TMNT Secret of the Ooze Shredder. This guy is starting to hit Walmart stores now, so if you're looking for him, start heading out to your Walmarts, guys. And so that's why I personally stopped by. In fact, the only reason I really stopped by there, to be honest, was because it was right next door to the place I got my food. And I was like, you know what? I'm already right here. Let me just run in real quick, see if there's anything, and then I'll run out. And yeah, there was nothing. Nothing in the toy aisle, nothing in the collector's aisle. It was just, yeah. So those are hitting Walmarts now, so look out for those. NECA did have some good reveals on Turtle Tuesday, guys. So starting off with some Mirage reveals. So starting off with the Casey Jones Mirage figure, guys. A lot of people have been waiting for this guy, and he is finally coming to your collection. So he is up for pre-order now on all major retailers as well, like Big Bad Toy Store, Dorkside, and stuff like that. These Mirage Turtles figures are actually fan channels and like comic book shop exclusives, so they're not Target exclusives, they're not Walmart exclusives, so you can pre-order these at almost any retailer that sells toys, because these are exclusives for those. And that's pretty great. Now we just need them to re-release the Turtles. That would be fucking amazing. So yeah, the other thing that they did reveal on Turtle Tuesday is the new Splinter Asval Helsing. Well, I mean, obviously he was revealed previously, but now we get to see some awesome promotional pictures of him. And, well, much like the other Splinters in the Turtles lines, he's going to be a pass for me. I respect Splinter, just like I respect Yoda, but Do I have a Yoda figure? No. Do I have a Splinter figure? Well, yeah, when I was younger, I have the '03 version, but that's really the only Splinter version I have. I don't have the 1990s Splinter. I don't have the cartoon Splinter. And so I don't really need the Van Helsing Splinter. I do need the four turtles as the monsters, obviously, but not Splinter as Van Helsing. So, with that being said, let's move on to something that I did miss last week because they announced it after I got my notes done and filmed last week's episode, and that is the Fireteam Elite aliens. They are two of them. There's the Burster alien and the Spitter alien. And honestly, guys, I think I might try to pick up the Burster because this thing looks gnarly. And I bet you if you point and aim a light perfectly on that green, it will look amazing on camera. And so I have some images in my head that I really want to get it out, and so I just need to get that Burster alien. And maybe if that Spitter alien looks good enough, I'll pick them up, because that's the thing about the Xenomorphs, is like they all look the same. And yeah, I mean, I guess I should get maybe one or two more, because that would look cool, like a grip of them just attacking a character. But I don't know, maybe I'll just pick up these two and then have the regular one in the background and stuff. So that's just me thinking out loud for future toy photography, guys. But anyways, they did also announce their next Universal Monsters Ultimate, the Invisible Man. Well, like I said about Splinter, they had already announced it and revealed that this was coming to the line. However, now we get to see everything that this figure comes with and some nice promotional pics of him. So this guy looks pretty damn cool, and it's pretty cool how they're doing the illusion when he's removing pieces of his mask or disguised, after he's turned invisible and whatnot. So that's pretty damn cool. Obviously a pickup for me because I am collecting the Universal Monsters, so I will definitely be picking this guy up. Now, I will say this is the first Universal Monster where I'm just like, do I need multiple? Because when you're looking at everything that he does come with, I think he comes with essentially 3 head sculpts, and then technically you get a free head sculpt in every box, because you can pop the head off and, well, he's the Invisible Man. So maybe I need 4, because they give you 3 head sculpts, but then you can also have him without a head. So that's the first Universal Monster where I'm just like, do I need multiple? I didn't need multiple of the Wolfman, even though there's 2, him as a human and him as a wolf. But I was just like, I just need him as a wolf. The Mummy, you just need 1. Frank, he comes with 2 or 3 head sculpts, but he looks fine with just the 1. But this one, this one just looks really cool the way they did it. But that's not the only Universal Monsters news that they did announce, because they did announce some throwback style glow-in-the-dark Universal Monster figures: Frankenstein, Wolfman, and the Mummy. So like I said, they do all glow in the dark. They're more of like the retro sculpt and stuff with modern paint and stuff like that. That's how they described it in their trailer with their stop motion stuff. That guy was putting in work, I have to tell you, because not only did we get an Invisible Man stop motion trailer, but we also got that glow in the dark Universal Monsters stop motion trailer. So shout out to him for putting in that work, and amazing work. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk some McFarlane toys, guys. So I will not be speaking on anything Black Adam. I think I've spoken about this before in my podcast, but I have a very personal hatred for The Rock. I am a bodybuilder, and about 4 or 5 years ago, The Rock went onto the Olympia stage, handed the trophy to the winner, took the mic from the winner, and went on a big old rant and speech about how much he loves bodybuilding, how much he's going to invest in bodybuilding, and how he's bringing bodybuilding to the mainstream, and how next year the Olympia will be on CBS. And the following year, it was not. He said he was going to give us a lot of behind the scenes footage through his YouTube channel. There was none. He claimed he was going to invest and up the prize money. There was no increase in prize money. And so, I understand he's a big superstar, blah, blah, blah. He's busy. But if you're going to say all this and take time to do this, then do it, in my opinion. That was such a stab in the back for the bodybuilding community. In fact, he was supposed to put on his own bodybuilding show to rival the Olympia. And this was supposed to go on in 2020, and obviously for obvious reasons that got canceled and pushed to 2021. Whereas a lot of bodybuilding shows actually continued in 2020 and into 2021 and now 2022. And now this show is essentially being pushed to 2023 for no apparent reason because, well, The Rock just doesn't give a fuck. And so if The Rock just doesn't give a fuck after giving that giant hoopla and speech just so he can gain some followers and fans, he can go fuck himself, and I am not going to promote his stuff. I'm not going to speak on him. Besides this story, to explain why I will not speak on him or promote anything that he does. So when we talk about McFarlane, I will only be speaking about non-Black Adam stuff. So Target did release a whole slew of pre-orders on Thursday, guys, starting off with the Bat Cycle from the 1966 show. Man, Todd knows how to get us. So definitely going to have to be picking this up. I absolutely love this thing. I grew up watching the 66 Batman movie. I didn't watch the show till I was a little older because I didn't have any, VHSs of it, but I did have a VHS of the 66 Batman. So I watched that constantly, and obviously that cycle is in it, so I have to buy it. Also in it is, of course, the Villains Lair, which we are getting as a playset, much like the Batcave playset. So super excited about that because regardless of it being, a Villains Lair backdrop and stuff, you can literally use it for any kind of 1/12 scale toy photography. It's going to be a little on the small side only because it's going to be made for 5-inch figures opposed to 6-inch figures, but with a little forced perspective, pushing it more in the background, pulling your figures forward, it actually makes for a really good display even for 1/12 figures. So he did also announce 2 new Batman 66 Batman and Joker variants, and I think we have plenty of these, Todd. Now I don't think we need any more Batmans from 66, and well, if you happen to want some black and white ones, you're in luck because he did announce that the next 2 that are coming out are going to be black and white retro 66 Batman and Joker. But that is not all, guys. There's one other figure coming to the line as well, and that is Mr. Freeze. So like I said, I grew up with the movie, not so much the TV show, so I have no real attachment to Mr. Freeze in this kind of aspect or this kind of way. So I don't think I'm going to be picking him up. I don't think I will actually be picking up any other villains from the 66 line. I've pretty much gotten all the ones that I grew up with in that set. I was going to get the new Catwoman. However, it is such a lazy repack, In watching the movie and watching the TV show, I understand that there's 2 actresses that played Catwoman, and one had a curvier body while one had a thinner body. And, well, Todd kind of just said, well, let's just put the head on the same body as the first one, and it just doesn't look right. It fits the first one, but it doesn't fit the second one, especially with me having grown up with the second one. I know what her body type is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a lot more slender and less curvy, and yeah, it's just the body type is way off, so I'm gonna have to be passing up on her. But that is not all from McFarlane, because he did announce a new line for DC characters, which are already starting to hit Walmart stores now. The 5-inch DC Superpowers tribute figures. I don't know where I was going with that, guys. I'll be honest. I thought there was one other word after tribute, but there's not. It's just the list of figures. So the figures that he did release already are Batman, Superman, Darkseid, which is pretty weird to think that Darkseid was a part of a kids show back in the day, especially considering how big of a bat he is. That's pretty interesting still, nonetheless. And of course, we get a few vehicles, the Supermobile and the Batwing. So if that's your fancy, guys, they're hitting Walmarts now. So next up, let's talk some Star Wars news, because they did announce 2 new figures. Of course, they are tied to the Kenobi series, and the first one being the Tekka Jawa and the Jabeem Obi-Wan. So those two are now up for pre-order. I have not pre-ordered a single Black Series from Kenobi. Like I said, I just don't see the value in Black Series anymore because of the price increases, and they don't try. Like, they still give us the little accessories that they do and lack of accessories that they do for an increased price. So it's like we were already getting fucked, and now we're getting double fucked. What's that one South Park meme that's going around right now?
Well, then could we at least pull up here and get some dinner? Because I like to be wined and dined after I've been fucked!
Yeah, that's kind of how it feels, you know what I mean? So, Hasbro, I think you owe me dinner. But anyways, guys, that is it for Star Wars news, just 2 figures. But we will kind of circle back to Star Wars in just a sec, because G.I. Joe announced their newest HasLab, the Hiss Tank, for their classified series, their 6-inch figures, guys. They announced a vehicle for their 6-inch figures. If you guys don't know why I'm so frustrated, you guys are obviously not Star Wars Black Series fans. Because all we want is a 6-inch vehicle for our Star Wars Black Series figures. But what the fuck do we get? We get a fucking overpriced Rancor that doesn't obviously make it, because who the fuck's gonna pay $350 for a Rancor that should be $150 at most? And then we get a fucking Black Series Inquisitor lightsaber? Who the fuck wants that shit? I mean, obviously a small percentage of fucking people, most likely people that are just trying to resell it if it fucking actually backs. Where is the Star Wars team's head at? We want vehicles. I understand they didn't work at retail, but that was retail. You put it out to big box retail. Here, you're literally soliciting orders to the fans. Did they not learn anything from the Razor Crest? We will fucking buy the vehicles. But no! They want to give us a fucking Rancor and a fucking lightsaber. The laziest pieces of shit HasLab they can offer. You know, it's just frustrating when people from the same company are doing so much better. I mean, the Marvel Legends team, they knock it out of the park with their HasLabs. Fucking giant ass figures. Galactus. The fucking, I can't even think. The Sentinels, right? That's what they were called. Fuck. Fucking G.I. Joe with its fucking Hiss Tank. Ghostbusters with a fucking proton pack. Fuck. But what do we get as Star Wars fans? A fucking Rancor and a fucking Black Series lightsaber that nobody fucking wants. I'm sorry, but nobody fucking wants that piece of shit lightsaber because there's nothing tied to it. It's a fucking lightsaber that was created specifically for profit by Disney. It was literally created by Disney for profit in their new Star Wars Rebels show. For new characters that they don't have to pay kickbacks to Old Man George. Because if you guys didn't know, any characters that George Lucas created, they still have to pay him a small percentage. So he's not stupid. He sold off the rights, but he still gets a little bit of royalties here and there. Why do you think they push all these properties that they themselves created? Why do you think there's so much overproduced sequel trilogy shit? Because that's where they make their money. That's theirs. Why do you think Kenobi looks a little cheap, while as the new Andor show looks so extravagant and movie-like? Because that's their creation. They don't have to pay George anything for that. They put $120 million into that show. They see $120 million into that show back and everything. Whatever they make is theirs. With Kenobi, I guarantee you they had to give George some kind of royalty for that. So George isn't stupid. Remember, he's the first one to have gone, toy rights for his movie opposed to movie rights. He literally sold, I think, the rights to Star Wars for the movies, and he kept the rights to all the action figure merchandise and whatnot. So, he's not stupid, guys. But like I said, I digress. G.I. Joe HasLab, Hiss Tank. If that's your thing, go ahead and pre-order it now. It's already backed. It backed in one day. It backed in a fucking day, guys. It backed in a fucking day. I mean, it doesn't get more frustrating than this. So I'm going to go ahead and just move on to Super 7 because they did announce their newest wave in the Simpsons line, which, another company that I kind of have an issue with because they solicit so many pre-orders before they even deliver on pre-orders. Like, I know Mezco does the same thing, but Mezco does the same thing with figures that don't connect, whereas Super 7, we haven't even seen the Super 7 Wave 1 Simpsons figures in hand or anything, and they're already soliciting orders for Wave 3 or 4 at this point. See, like, to me, that's a little... that's not good. You know, because what if you get that first wave in and it's just not what you like, and now you're 4 waves deep, you know? That's an investment right there that you're in, you know? So it's like, I feel like companies should have to deliver a product first before soliciting pre-orders for the next. But obviously that's not the case. And so if you want to pre-order the newest Simpsons wave with Ralph Wiggum, Kang, Kodos, and Mr. Burns, head over to the Super 7 website now and pre-order them. So talking some Hot Toys next. Like I said, now that I am into Hot Toys, we will be speaking on Hot Toys whenever they come out with a figure that I do find some enjoyment and wantness out of. So this figure being the Purge Trooper. This was a Black Series figure that I did pass up on, and well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pass up on this Hot Toy. I mean, he looks bad fucking ass. So, I'm telling you guys, don't get into Hot Toys. Do not, under any circumstances, get into Hot Toys because it is a black hole. It's not a rabbit hole. It is a black fucking hole. But once again, referencing my conversation with Angi, they are amazing to stare at and just admire. I do find myself just constantly admiring them. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did move them around. I did change their poses and stuff. Like I said, I was going to try to do every week. And yeah, so obviously this guy's wearing the regular 501st Phase 2 helmet now. And honestly, as much as I love the Phase 1 helmet, guys, he does look pretty badass with that Phase 2 helmet on. But next week he will have the Phase 1 helmet back on his head and in a different pose, as well as Kenobi, Kit Fisto, and Plo Koon will be the same once again because they are 17-year-old figures, so the articulation is very limited opposed to, you know, these newer figures and whatnot. Mando's in a different pose right here. He looks like he's stalking somebody. I'm probably going to put him in like a drawing pose next, like he's, you know, kind of leaning back and kind of like shooting somebody real quick. Boba's holding his, you know, classic blaster. Death Watch guy kind of just put his gun down, put the antenna back up. And then Spidey and Goblin are all new, so that's a whole new display and pose. And yeah, talking about that, I had to move my Batmobiles over to here because that was too tall of a diorama and display to put on anything but the top shelf. And yeah, that was definitely a challenge, fitting every single Batmobile on a bottom shelf because I was really utilizing every space, not only on the shelf, but slightly outside the shelf as well, to fit them all. And I was able to fit them all. However, the animated series Batmobile had to go under the new riser because, well, just because that was the only space available for it. But other than that, I did technically fit them all on one shelf. You just can't see every single one of them, you know, that one being the animated series one, but it is there. But yeah, always have fun posing these guys up. And yeah, so next week, look out, they will be in a different pose. So yeah, guys, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk our final bit of toy news right here with the Loyal Subjects. They did announce 2 new 4-packs, part of their new TMNT Mirage line. So they did announce a 4-pack with Shredder, Elite Foot Soldier, Wrath, and Donnie. And like I said, these are the Mirage versions. So the turtles come with all red bandanas, much like they did in the Mirage comics. The second 4-pack is Leo, Michelangelo, and 2 foot soldiers, 1 regular and 1 with the headband. So yeah, those seem pretty cool, honestly. I'm kind of torn. Like, those actually look pretty cool, and I'm just really hoping NECA re-releases the Mirage Turtles. I'm really hoping. I do have the knockoffs, but I would really like some authentic NECA Mirage Turtles. But yeah, guys, with that being said, that wraps up this week's quite a bit of toy news for once. We've had a few slow weeks here and there. So a pretty decent amount of toy news this week, obviously, opposed to compared to like a week or two ago. They kind of had some slow weeks here, but it seems like they're starting to pick back up. It seems like with San Diego Comic-Con, so close, stuff for that's already set in motion and stuff. And so I feel like toy companies are starting to look towards past San Diego Comic-Con at this point. They're always looking ahead to the future. What's next? What else can they sell us? What else can they put on pre-order for us? How else can they get those free, loans from us? But anyways, guys, with that being said, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Coffee and Toys Live. I really do appreciate each and every single one of you that watch. Of course, this episode is not over. Stay tuned for Coffee and Toys Live with special guest Ongi. But before I go, guys, please follow me over on Instagram at CoolFigurez, and I do have a second Instagram account for my more thought out, planned out, more edited toy photography pics called Epic Shots by CoolFigurez. Check it out if you like what you see. Leave me a follow there as well. If you guys do enjoy unboxings, check me out over on TikTok at CoolFigurez. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button here on YouTube at CoolFigurez. So with that being said, guys, once again, thank you so much for watching this week's episode, and let's get into this week's Coffee and Toys Live. All right, guys, welcome back to the CoolFigurez page. I'm your host, Jesse the Bat Madrigal, aka the Buff Collector, and welcome to episode 21 of Coffee and Toys, where I speak to a new guest every week about toys, toy collecting, toy photography, and so much more. This week, I'd like to welcome toy collector, Dr. Strangelover, the wonderful, the beautiful Ongi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming on. How is your week going so far?
It's pretty good. It's really, really hot where I live. I don't know how the temperature is over there, but I'm baking.
Well, I live in California, so it's basically like hell right now.
Okay, yeah. So you're feeling it. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we definitely are. Thankfully, I'm used to the heat. I prefer the heat. I'm not a cold person, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I like the cold, but we just have humidity. We don't even have like a nice pleasant heat. You're just in a swamp.
Ooh. Yeah, see, thankfully ours is more of like a dry heat, so we don't have that issue.
Yeah, you got the ideal heat, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't seem to mind it too much. But yeah, if I was in like Florida or somewhere in the Midwest like you, then yeah, I think I'd be a little more miserable.
Yeah, it's just muggy and there's just insects, and it's just like, all right, well, I'll go inside and I won't leave the house till November 2nd.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get on into this. And usually I ask my guests, what gets them into collecting. But I think what would be interesting, since you have a unique perspective, with the toy collecting community mainly being made up of men, much like the car community and sports collecting community. What got you into these franchises first and foremost before we get even into collecting?
Yeah, so I was really late into the Marvel game. I will admit that. I kind of saw like a few Marvel movies every now and then. I saw the first the Avengers movie back in 2012. But I saw it because my stepbrother wanted to see it, and I didn't see any other movies, so I was very confused the whole time. I was like, I don't know what's going on. But I later kind of picked up some of the other ones, and I enjoyed them okay for a while. But for some reason, I ended up seeing Infinity War, and I really enjoyed it. So I kind of after I saw Infinity War, I went back and really dedicated myself to watching how you should watch the MCU. And I'm a creative writing major, so I really like storytelling, especially from a film standpoint. And I think the MCU has been very unique in storytelling. We really haven't seen a cinematic universe before, and the MCU really coined the term. So I remember really falling in love with it because it had such a unique way of continuing stories and tying it into this whole universe that people could enjoy. And so that's really what got me into Marvel, and that opened the whole door to the Marvel universe. And I started collecting comics and picking up where I was definitely lacking. So I would say that's kind of what got me into this franchise, is really the success of the movies.
Well, that's great to hear, especially since you connect with it, through your major and everything. Since you say that, the continuity and the continuation of a storyline is so, pioneered by Marvel, would you say that it is somewhat overused now in other franchises? Other franchises try to do what Marvel did, and it's obvious.
I mean, yeah, I guess I would say yes and no. Yes, I obviously think that people are definitely trying to mimic or copy Marvel's formula because it's been so successful. And obviously, any sort of movie wants to have the success that Marvel has. you're gonna see that. So I think it was inevitable when you have something like that. Obviously, people are gonna try to copy it. I don't really shame anyone for doing that because like when you're a writer, the first thing you're always taught is like you're never gonna tell an original story. Every single story out there's already been told. You just have to find like a new way to tell it. And so, you know, I think eventually someone was going to come up with the idea, so I'm not going to blame anyone for trying to, like, do what Marvel's doing. I just think that, you know, we can obviously that there's some franchise that aren't putting a creative or original twist on it, and I think that's the problem. They're trying too hard to be Marvel, and it's like, you're not Marvel, so just don't do what Marvel does. You can learn from them and say, hey, it would be really cool to, like, have a shared universe where we have all these different characters we can introduce, but, you know, you don't need to do it exactly as Marvel does. So I think that's where like the problem is right now, is finding how you can make this idea a little bit more of your own.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like DC especially tried to, copy that Marvel formula to a T.
Yes.
And but unfortunately they tried to do it in about a year and a half opposed to actually fleshing it out like Marvel did, over 10 years
Well,
and
with
stuff.
Teddy, they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to wait.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, here's 10 years worth of movies and stories in one movie, and then we're going to continue from there.
Yes. I know, I think someone made like, or, I've seen people talk about, with the Justice League, they try to do it almost in like reverse, where they're like, okay, let's introduce all of our really big heroes in one really monumental movie, and then introduce them in their own standalone films. And it's like, that doesn't really work as well because we have no attachment to these characters really, unless you're a really big comic fan, and then you kind of already bring your emotional baggage with you. So I kind of was like, that's an interesting way for them to try to separate from Marvel by kind of doing it on the opposite. But, as we know with DC, it hasn't really been that successful for them, which is a shame because they have some really cool stories. And I think if they just try not to be Marvel so much, they could find their own success really well in the movie franchise. Like we see with like Joker, that was such a different take. Stop trying to copy. You have great ideas, you have great characters and great storylines. Just work on fleshing those out.
No, yeah, definitely. I think DC came in wanting to make movies for the fans, and they kind of leaned a little too heavily into that. And they're like, you have to already know what's going on in all these stories to know what's going on in these films.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Or they kind of isolated the general audience in that sense, and they couldn't get that good mixture. They were just too far into one extreme or the other, where Marvel has that good mixture where they're able to introduce characters that aren't really even known to the public that well and make them, big time franchises like Guardians.
Yeah. And I was going to say, even though, and I will definitely say, obviously, the MCU is still a Marvel product because, they're using Marvel characters and stuff, but like, they have managed to make the MCU almost its own thing, where you don't have to enjoy the comics to enjoy the MCU, and you don't have to enjoy the MCU to enjoy the comics. They managed to, kind of connect them, but separated them enough that if you just want to be an MCU fan, you have enough content to enjoy. If you just want the comics, you have enough content to enjoy. And so I agree with you where it's like DC is still kind of in the muddled water where you kind of have to have that attachment to one side to really enjoy the other. And, it's just interesting to see.
No, yeah, definitely. And like you said, it seems like DC is finding their footing with these standalone films that are kind of outside the realm of what you would expect a superhero movie to be, like Joker and the new Batman movie. It was very noir, detective heavy. It was more of a think piece and stuff versus, a Christopher Nolan action set piece. It has its action moments and stuff, but we also finally get to see that part of Batman that we don't really get to see from the comics, where he's trying to figure stuff out and, he's starting to learn stuff. And so, maybe hopefully within the next coming years, they'll be on the turnaround and somehow able to compete with Marvel in some aspects.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, when I always, I'm not incredibly knowledgeable in DC. I definitely lean more towards Marvel, but I've always given DC credit because they've always been more unafraid to get really darker into their themes and kind of, explore a level of humanity that Marvel is every now and then kind of tentative about. And I think they could make really interesting content if they really delved into that. And, the issue with Marvel nowadays is that because they're owned by Disney, they have to be a little bit more careful with that family-friendly image. And DC's always been a little bit more relaxed with that. So I think it would be cool if they, kind of leaned into their opportunity there because, DC Comics have always been kind of really dark. And so I think they could do a lot of really interesting things with that if they, were willing to, again, not try to compare themselves to Marvel.
No, yeah, definitely. I think that's the other thing is like comparing and contrasting Marvel versus DC. It's like apples and oranges, night
Yeah,
and day, literally, because Marvel is like all bright and daylight, and DC is the complete opposite in most aspects. Besides maybe like Superman and a few stories with Wonder Woman, those
yeah.
are a little brighter and campier and stuff. But for the most part, Flash has a pretty dark, kind of storyline. Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, Batman, obviously, Black Adam, so you can't really apply what Marvel did, and I think we saw that in the Josh Whedon Justice League also. They tried to apply Marvel onto it,
Yes.
and you can just tell those characters and that just
Tone
doesn't
does
fit.
not mix. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, to me, that was the hardest iteration of Batman to watch. Literally, I can't watch those scenes anymore. Like, I saw them once and I can't. They're
Yeah, I
just
know.
so hard.
Same. And it's like, I've read some things that we call nowadays, our superheroes are kind of our replacement for like our, old mythologies. They're kind of our modern mythology where, we have these, almost godlike beings that can do incredible things. I grew up on like the Percy Jackson series and all that, so like I love mythology. And there's people who enjoy Greek mythology and Norse mythology and Egyptian mythology, and they're all so unique and different. You can love them for what they are. And I think, DC comics and Marvel comics, are kind of our modern day replacers for that. So I do wish there wasn't so much of that stigma to like, oh, we have to be in competition with each other, where it's like, no, you both have your strengths and just, really hone in and play on them because you're going to find a fan who will enjoy them. And especially if you're more open-minded, I want DC to be successful just as much as Marvel. And so, you wish it was more open-minded where it's like, I want to see both these franchises succeed in their own little ways. And I wish they would, bury the hatchet and continue down that path. But, capitalism, they want to make money. I understand.
Exactly, exactly. There has to be some sort of competition, right? I mean, there's always got to be Superman versus Captain America, Batman versus Spider-Man, something.
And it's like, if you think too hard about anything, it all falls apart. So I'm just like, just don't.
At the end of the day, it's a bunch of grown men and women running around in tights and capes. So how
Exactly,
seriously can you
yeah.
take
It's like,
it?
yeah, sometimes they take themselves almost a little too seriously.
No, yeah, definitely. It's kind of like the toy community, sometimes you have to just step back and realize like these are just toys. You just have to wait for them to come out, be patient. Don't be so harsh on just, renders and stuff.
Exactly, yeah. It's like, they don't even have to give us this, so let's just enjoy what, we have the ability to enjoy.
Exactly. So it seems like you got into this at a later age. It wasn't something you grew up with or somebody got you into growing up. It seems like this is something you, like you said, you went with your stepbrother and it kind of just piqued
Yeah.
your interest from there.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been into like collecting in general. Like, there's always been things I collected, never like to the extreme of which I collect now. And I think that's mostly because like I was raised with a mother who liked collecting things, so I was like in the
Mm,
environment where that was like a thing. I mean, she collected baskets and like Crocs, so very very different type of. But we would go to like antique malls and like shop together and all that.
hmm
So I was always like kind of, I had a very giving, materialistic kind of family, not really in the negative way, but like, I was always around toys. And,
hmm
as like a kid, I would always need like a little figure to take to school with me just to have, and I would always get in trouble for it. And then it was just in my pocket, but they were like, no toys at school. And I'm like, oh, I'm not playing with it. But, and of course, as a girl, I played with Barbies and all that. So it was very much in my life. But, it's kind of hard when you're a kid and you don't have spendable money to like keep up with collecting because you have to go ask mom and dad to like buy you a figure. And
hmm
I think every collector experiences that point of time where you think you're too old for toys. You're kind of like, oh well, I'm like, for me it was when I entered high school. I was like, okay, well I need to be like a certain level of maturity. I don't need to ask mom if I can go down the toy aisle and pick out a doll. So in high school, I wasn't really working yet, so I just didn't do any toys. I got into video gaming a lot in my high school age, and then after college, I was like, I had a job, I was having money come in, and I was just kind of like, I miss buying toys. I enjoyed that. That made me happy. So I started that again, and that like introduced me into like the collecting community, and I was like, oh my god, there's other people that are still buying toys at my age, and that was like so liberating because I thought I was like the only one who just refused to grow up. So that was really refreshing to see. That's like, oh no, I'm not the only one by far.
No, yeah, that was definitely an interesting find for myself too, discovering the toy community here on Instagram and seeing, like you said, there are other people that never really grew up or grew up for a time and realized, well, this sucks. I want to go back to being a kid and,
Yeah.
went back, to buying toys and stuff. And now there's a whole different there's just different aspects to it. There's collectors, there's sellers, there's people that are collectors that are opening up their own stores, toy
Yeah.
photography. So many new things that are just branching out from this one hobby. And it seems like also
Mhm.
just like now it's just the time to be a toy collector because all the toys nowadays that come out are just as best as you can get. As much as we like to harp on them and
Yeah.
stuff, when you look back at like
Oh,
vintage stuff versus nowadays, they're way further apart.
yeah. Like early Toy Biz. I've seen some and I'm like, oh, and I think, we're finally at the age where we appreciate toys more than we did as kids. Because, when you're a kid, you're just wanting to play with it and you really don't care about the quality. And don't know. I think I have a little bit. I don't know if I'm freezing up or if you're freezing up. So I'm gonna wait until
I
I
think you're
think
freezing up a
might
bit.
interact a little more. Am I freezing up a bit? All right.
Just a bit.
Let me
You're you're
just
fine
a bit.
now.
Okay. All right. Am I good now?
See.
Okay.
Okay. You're good.
All right. Sorry about that, everyone. No,
You're
I
good.
was saying, when you're a kid, you don't really you care about the toy. You like that you have the toy, but you're there to play with the toy. And I know we all probably experience that moment where like a child is playing with like a really expensive legend, and we're like, oh my gosh, you don't know the value you hold in your hands. And so it is cool coming back into the toy community as an adult because I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually appreciate the art that went into this. The person who had to make this. We understand the kind of complicated process of it being drawn out, it being approved, it being sent off to market, it being released. It's a really interesting thing to look at from an older experience. And I always, I'll die on my hill where I just don't understand the culture of that. When we have to grow up, we have to get rid of certain things. I don't. I think if you enjoy it and it makes you happy and it's not hurting anyone else, who cares? It's like my mother, my nephew, he loves pink, which is really funny because my sister, his mother, absolutely hates pink, but he buys anything that's pink. And my mother is like, why does he enjoy pink? And I'm like, because he just likes pink. We have like a weird stigma in our culture, and so it's just kind of fun coming into a community where we're really trying to work on that. Where it's like if you like toys, that's really cool. And it's like you said, you can do so many different things with it. You can do art photography that I'm really envious of people who can do really cool toy photography because I can't. But yeah, people who just like collecting them. We have, you have the resellers, which, hate them, love them. That's a whole, community as well. So it's really diverse and it's cool to see.
No, yeah, definitely. Thankfully my parents never threw away all my old toys, so I still had them, and so that kind of helped kickstart.
Okay, yeah,
Going. I was
you're,
going through the garage one day and I saw them in the corner, and I was like, oh, what's this box? And I opened it up and I was like, oh, I remember this. I remember this. And I was like,
uh,
I'm gonna take this in, go through it, and next thing you know it, they're all over my room and stuff. And then I realized that they've completely updated these figures. I was really into Star Wars toys when I was younger, and now they have the Black Series and stuff. And so that really blew my mind. I was like, oh, wow, these are figures that I would have wanted as a kid in this scale and stuff.
okay, yeah. And that's really cool. And then that you still have your old ones, so you still have that emotional connection to them. That like at one point, I did play with this, and this is mine, and it has been for several years. So that's really cool.
Exactly. The only downside to that is then you upgrade to the hot toys, and it gets a little more pricey.
Mm. Oh yeah. Oh yes, I'm very familiar with that uphill battle.
So you kind of got into a bit of how you got into collecting because you've always been into collecting, but what made you want to get into specifically pop culture, Marvel toy collecting and stuff?
Yeah, so it was also around Infinity War was when I really got into Marvel, and of course I'm a very physical person, so when I enjoy something I like having like a physical representation of that just to have around to kind of like display like I like Marvel.
Mhm.
This is I like Marvel if you can't tell. So after I watched Infinity War, I was like, okay, well I kind of want to add that to my personality. And I wasn't making a lot of money at that time because college student loans, that whole
Hmm. Oh yeah.
And so at the time I was like, okay, well what can I afford to spend money on? And that was when I found Funko Pops because I did start out as a Funko collector, surprise. And
Yep.
I could spend $10 every now and then on a Funko Pop, which is really
Hmm.
funny because I hate bobbleheads, and I had over like 230 at one point. And I
Yep.
blame it because I used to play Mass Effect, like way back when. Mass Effect was one of my biggest video game franchises. I love it, and I bought some of the Funko vinyl figures that they made for Mass Effect, and that's how I kind of knew that Funko was a thing. And those weren't bobbleheads because I wasn't aware that Funko only had the rights to Marvel to produce bobbleheads. So I was like, ooh,
Hmm.
I like the vinyl figures. And then I bought like my first few Funko Pops after, seeing Infinity War, and then they were bobbleheads. And I was like, did I buy the wrong type? Like, I was like, is there like an option? So that's why I kept mine in box for the longest time because I was like, it didn't bother me as much if they were just in box. And the reason I got so into collecting that was because that was the only thing I knew that I could buy that was like in my price range. Because at this point, I hadn't gone to like a toy aisle in like years, and if I even did go into a toy aisle, I was still that type of person where I was like, well, nothing in the boy aisle is going to interest me. So I never like wandered past the Marvel selection. So I didn't know Legends were a thing for the longest time.
Hmm.
And like secretly, that's what I was looking for because I like dolls, so I wanted like articulation and I wanted like a figure.
Hmm.
And so for a while I was like, well, Funkos are the closest I'm gonna get. And not that I don't, I loved my time collecting them because that helped me learn like toy language because you have like the chase variants, so you have to kind of understand what does that mean. You have, all
Hmm.
the Comic Con exclusives, you have to understand what that means, and it was fun, going out and hunting for them. But that Funko Pops, I guess, was really what really got me into like mainstream toy collecting. And when I was buying, all these Funko Pops, I first started just sharing them on my personal Instagram. That isn't public. It was just, it's just closed to my friends, and obviously my friends don't care. And it was just like slowly like congesting my feed, and I knew no one was caring that I was posting this, but I wanted to keep it as to like a visual diary to see. All right, this is what I
Hmm.
bought. This is when I bought it. And so after a while, I was just worried. I was like annoying all my personal friends. I was like, maybe I should just make a public account and I'll just post on there, and people who want to see it will then see it. And so that's what actually indirectly started my collecting account was from them. I don't collect them any longer. I'll buy a few Funkos every now and then, but I sold most of mine at a pumpkin farm like 2 years ago in October. But love or hate them, they were a big part of my journey. So I appreciate it.
Honestly, to be funny, that sounds a lot like my journey as well because not only did I get into the Black series, but I got into Funko Pops as well. It seemed like it was more mainstream, a little more accepting, a lot more people had them. It wasn't more like, oh, it's a toy. It was an actual like vinyl little statue, I guess you could say. And aside from that, they were literally making these things for anything and every franchise,
Yeah.
whether it was a pop culture, a TV show, a movie that was a comedy, a romantic drama. It didn't matter what it was, there was a Funko Pop for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it seemed like it was more accepting. So yeah, I got into it. In fact, there was actually a Funko Pop store that opened up like right down the street from me for a time. And so yeah, they would do pop meets and stuff, and me and my friends would go, and we'd go and have fun. And so it was kind of like the camaraderie of the community and everything
Yeah.
also, and kind of like you said, learning the chase variants, the special editions, the Comic Con editions, stuff like that. And yeah, eventually, I learned about, like you said, Marvels were only coming in bobbleheads. And much
Yeah.
like you, I'm not a big bobblehead fan. So my Marvel collection in terms of Funko Pops has been limited and small. I still actually have my collection, but I am going to be selling it very soon
Oh,
because, like I said, when you get into the hot toys and stuff,
you make sacrifice. Yeah.
I don't know if it's really a sacrifice when it comes to those. They're just kind of taking up space at this point, you know what I mean? But it's
You
like,
gotta talk nice to them, or they'll appear on your shelf after you throw it away, and you're swearing it away, but it's back somehow.
I know I was going through them and I was kind of like, oh, maybe I want to keep this one. I'm just like, no, all of them have to go. All of them must go. You
Yeah.
can't keep one because you keep one, then like you said, they're just going to trickle back in. And it's like, no, you need to get rid of these. That way, not only does it make space, but it creates a little more cash, invest in some different stuff in the collection and stuff. But yeah, that's definitely something that got me into collecting once again as well. And like you said, it taught me a lot, got me into the community, and that kind of once again, kind of like you, got me into starting my own feed. I realized that I had a growing collection, and like I said, I never got rid of my toys when I was younger. So I started displaying some of my toys when I had
Okay, yeah.
Some of my Star Wars toys, my Spider-Mans and stuff like that. And so I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to kind of like you said, document what I have in my collection since, I have my friends and family over and they'll, ooh, okay, cool. And okay, let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but then, like you said, once you find this community, like, wow, there's other people that are interested in toys and collections. It's like, well, maybe I should start posting on here,
Yeah.
And so it started off as that, just a figure just there in a white backdrop and everything. And then slowly I saw that there was like toy photography and all this other interesting stuff. And it just snowballed from there.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, because that's like, I think that's one of the really cool advantages that Instagram accounts have is that, like, when you collect toys or when shopping's your hobby, it's hard to do hobby-related things with it. And that's why I liked collecting Funkos, because, it would give you incentive to go out to pop meets or to, hunt for, exclusives. And it felt more like an actual engaging activity. Or when you have, like, a personal collecting account, you can talk with other collectors, you can share your latest find, so it does very much solidify it as an actual like hobby, and it gives you that sort of interaction that sometimes is hard to have when you're just buying toys. And something that what I was reminded of, I don't know if it was the same for you, I don't know if you have your own house or apartment now, I just know when I got my first apartment, it really helped my collecting because finally I had like a bigger space to actually display toys and not just have like, my own little room in my house that, my parents obviously did not understand, but, fortunately they didn't judge me for it. But, I do know that when I moved out, that was also another really huge development in my own personal collecting.
No, yeah, I don't have my own house just quite yet, especially with housing prices the way they are, especially here in California. But
Oh,
yeah, I've already pictured in my head once I do get my own place, apartment, house, whatever it may be. I know I have a room specified, for my collection
okay, yeah.
because I know it's definitely going to bleed over to another room.
Oh, it'll take over your house. Don't worry. It finds a way. It's like a weed.
Trust me, I know it's already kind of taken over my house with my family and stuff. They've been gracious enough to allow me to put up another shelving unit in another room to display some stuff.
Nice. And then slowly they'll let you have another shelf, and then you slowly just encroach.
Yeah, then they're gonna be like, okay, what are you gonna do with all this stuff?
It's okay. I feel bad sometimes because, I have a nephew, and every now and then my aunt will be watching him, and we live in like the same neighborhood, so we, kind of cross paths every now and then. And my nephew really wants to go inside my apartment because he's never been inside my apartment, but he's 4 and he doesn't understand there's some toys you just don't touch. And so I always have to be like, when you're older, you can come in. But for now, I don't think your mother wants me to be mad at her because you broke $100 figure that she doesn't want to pay for, and I won't make you pay for it. So for now, my nephew just enjoys me in other places. But he's gonna get hooked up when he's older and he wants action figures. Then we'll bond.
That's actually a really good plan because you don't want him messing with those hot toys.
Like I said, it's not that I love him more. I spent a lot of money, and I just don't want to be out of that money.
Yeah, you don't want issues right there. You don't want more stress.
Yeah, no.
you want to stay happy.
He likes dinosaurs anyway, so it's fine.
I'll just buy him some of those new Jurassic Park toys. He'll be fine.
I think he has. I'm pretty sure he has all of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Your sister's got you covered on that already.
Oh yes.
So I take it that Hot Toys is probably one of your favorite lines you collect now. It seems like maybe Marvel Legends was something that kind of bridged that gap between the Funkos and the Hot Toys.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So how long were you collecting Marvel Legends before you thought to yourself, well, maybe I should invest in something better?
Yeah. So actually, I think they both entered my collection relatively around the same time, surprisingly. I definitely bought more Marvel Legends before I even upgraded like most of my Hot Toys. But the reason I got into Hot Toys is I have a friend, and she lives another state away, but she has a few Hot Toys, and she would always just go on about how great Hot Toys were. And I don't know, I bet every person who before they get into Hot Toys experiences this, where you're just like, shut up about the Hot Toy, just shut up about the Hot Toy. She was just like, it's such good quality for your money. And I was just like, me with my $20 like Marvel, like, well, some of us don't have a lot of money. But finally, I think it was either after a holiday or like a birthday, I came into like, a little extra cash, and I was like, all right, well, I'll just look. And that's, where the problem starts. So I was like, I'll just look and see what options are out there. And it was on eBay. And my very first hot toy was the Age of Ultron Vision, because I really enjoy Vision. And it's really hard to find any MCU content for Vision. He's just one character that, I mean, recently they've been a little better, but when I first got into it a few years before WandaVision and everything, everyone was like, Vision, we're not putting anything out for Vision. So I found the Age of Ultron Hot Toy, and he was actually only like $200, which is really good for that character. Obviously at the time I did not know that, but I was still, it was in my price range, and it had all of his accessories, it had his box. He was in, pretty much peak condition. So I bought him not so much because he was a hot toy, but mostly because I just couldn't find anything that had Vision, and he was a pretty cool Vision. So I bought him, and then obviously anyone who buys their first hot toy probably remembers you get them and you see them and you're like, oh, I understand now. There's like this to Paul Bettany, like the quality of the mesh fabric they use, the wire, it was fully articulated. Vision comes with Mjolnir, the hammer. I was just blown away. And, I knew in the back of my head because, as someone who bought 230 Funkos, I was like, oh, we have a problem. Because if I bought something else, I was like, all right, I see now. And that's kind of where it started. Then I was like, all right, the next time I got a little good amount of pocket cash, I would begin to look again. And then you end up with 8, 9, or 10.
Oh, I totally understand that. I ended up with 9 of them within 3 weeks.
Oh my, okay, well,
yeah,
I
so
could do that, so credit to you, but
don't feel too bad. Yeah, I happened to go to Star Wars Celebration, and I was like, you know what, I kind of want to commemorate this by buying my first hot toy. And in fact, I actually didn't like it because the fat suit underneath was actually really hindering the articulation.
Oh, okay, yeah, I think I saw your post about that.
Yeah, and so like I said, it was my first hot toy, and then it was just essentially my first reaction. I opened it up on camera, and I was really checking it out for the first time. And obviously afterwards, I did my research on it, found out, there's a fat suit underneath, take that off, articulation's perfectly fine. Yeah. And once I did that, I kind of hated myself for finding that fix, because then I fell in love with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, now I want another one.
Yes.
And next thing you know, like I said, 3 weeks later, I ended up with 9. And I'm just like, well, that just happened.
Aren't they so nice to look at? I will always.
So beautiful.
I will die on my hill. My motto is that, I freaking, everyone is like, Sideshow should just sponsor you, because I'm like a little sideshow bird. I'm like, do it. But my belief is that, if you're really into toy collecting, or you're really into a character, or really into a franchise, I always think it's worth to get at least one hot toy, especially if it's your favorite character, because the detail is so good. And I just always, if you're gonna spend money, if you're like me, I don't have that many Marvel Legends, but the amount of money I've been willing to spend on Marvel Legends is a good small profit. So if you're willing to spend the money, why not spend it on something that you can definitely buy for the best? The quality is certainly there. So I always tell someone, if you're really passionate about this, a hot toy is a really good way to display that, both to yourself and to others. I just think it's like a little treat. So I always tell people, you don't have to buy every single hot toy. Please don't.
Yeah.
Do that. But get one, and you'll understand once you get it. So I managed to successfully do that with a few people, and they probably don't thank me, but I do think if you're out there and you're like, I don't know if I should buy a hot toy, just one, at least one.
Yeah.
If you can afford it reasonably.
Yeah. No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Especially for me, it was mainly the rise in the cost and the budget figures, the mass produce. I didn't see, the quality going up, and for what we were paying, everything was staying the same, especially in the Star Wars department. It's not like we were getting extra hands, heads, weapons, soft goods. It was literally what we were getting, if not less, and having to pay more. Yeah. And so I was like, you know what, instead of, shelling out all this money for these budget figures, like you said, I enjoy these certain characters. Why not put some money into these premium figures? And yeah, once you do, and like you said, once you get that first one in hand, you're just blown away by the detail and everything. And it's just crap.
Yeah. Like I've had a few of my Marvel Legends for a few years now. I mean, not my Marvel Legends, my Hot Toys for a few years now, and like I finally I got a detolf shelf for them and everything, and I still stop and look at them, and I'm still like, wow, and it's really hard to keep that kind of long lasting effect of something that like genuinely makes you happy. And so, yeah, I just think it's really worth it because I'm like, they still haven't lost their appeal. Like, obviously, there's pros and cons to everything. Some of the materials you have to be careful with. They are a little bit more high maintenance. You got to keep them away from sunlight. If you have anything with leather, inevitably that will peel. So I think, take that into account. But if you can afford it and if you can take care of it, it's a worthwhile investment.
I 100% agree with that because, yeah, exactly. Like you, I find myself, walking into this corner and just like staring at them one by one. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
Me personally, I absolutely love clone troopers. So when I was able to get my hands on this hot toy right here, that's why he's positioned right here in this corner because my
Yeah.
bed's right here. And so if I'm watching TV or anything, it's one thing I see perfectly.
Are you pretty overwhelmed with the option? I'm not too big into Star Wars, but I know they have like a lot of Stormtrooper hot toys. So were you like a little overwhelmed, or did you only buy ones that were like available on the website right now, or did you like roam through like I have a specific Stormtrooper and this is what I want?
So yeah, I personally, like I said, I love clone troopers and Mandos. So that's what I was looking for, and I personally use the app OfferUp. It's kind of like a
Oh,
neighborhood selling place, you know what I
okay,
mean? And you'll find some great deals on there. And I
okay.
found this one guy that was just trying to get rid of some hot toys to get some cash for his sister to get a car for college or something like that.
Oh,
And so he ended up selling me most of these actually for some great prices. He ended up giving me the Mythos Boba and Mando, the deluxe with Grogu
yeah.
for 425, I think, for both of them.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that is a really good deal.
Yeah, and then he ended up selling me Mythos Obi-Wan, Kit Fisto, and Plo Koon up there. Plus, I feel like there was one other toy in that mix, but he sold me those three for 450.
Wow. Okay,
So
that's cool.
yeah,
Yeah, sometimes you
yeah.
find those people and you're like, thank you.
Exactly. I love that app because I also got into Mezco. That was what bridged my gap from 6 inch to Hot Toys with Mezco toys.
Okay.
And that's where I find a lot of great deals on Mezcos because if you don't know too much about Mezcos, they are crazy in the third party market, especially after they go out of stock and stuff like that. Like some of
Okay.
them will stay on the market for a bit in retail, but like exclusives, they sell out within minutes. And once they're sold out, they triple and quadruple in price
Mhm.
on the third party market.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not too big into mezcos just because there's not a lot of comic characters I'm like a huge fans of, and they definitely specify more with comic. But I have the two of the Doctor Strange ones, so
Of course you do.
I can see the appeal. I respect mezco. Yeah. So, and I was gonna say that because kind of with mezco and Hot Toys, I always try to make a deal with like because Hot Toys go up crazy in price after they're no longer on the Sideshow website. They're on the Sideshow website for pretty long. I would say about 2 to 3 years is the average,
Hmm.
kind of website expectancy of a Sideshow product. But so I always say, if there's a character I like, just buy it now before it goes out of stock, because if you don't like it, you can always resell it. Probably make your money back, if not a little more if you want. But yeah, that aftermarket is for some of these figures are insane if you don't just get it right away.
No, yeah, that's definitely the mindset I take with Mezco as well. Just buy it now. And honestly, with those, yeah, you'll definitely make your money back easily, if not a little bit of profit. Even if you put it up just for $50 more, you'll get someone that's gonna buy it the next day, if not within that hour, because they'll see that that's a good deal. Because everybody else is gonna be selling it for 2 to 3 times its price already.
And especially if they're like import figures, because I don't know if anyone's like me, where sometimes you just kind of like buying from the country you're more familiar with. So sometimes people are just willing to pay because you have it in hand. They don't have to wait for it to come from Japan for 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. So that's also kind of like another little appeal.
No, yeah, definitely. So, okay, so Hot Toys is definitely your line now. After, going through a few Funkos and Marvel Legends, you've definitely settled on Hot Toys. So is that where you find yourself purchasing more now? You kind of just save your money for those?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, I've had a weird phase with my collecting. I don't know if you ever go through it. I go through a lot of like purging stages. That's what I call it, where it's like I'll come like I'll either fall out of interest with a character, or I'll just get dissatisfied with like my state of my collecting, and I'll just like sell a lot and, you know, replace it with something that I'm interested in right now. So I have gotten rid of a lot of Marvel Legends. Obviously, I keep the ones that have personal connections with me. I would say the money I'm actually spending on right now is like I'm really into like custom Marvel Legends. I'm really big into like the customizing, you know, community that's like in Marvel Legends. So, but I'm definitely still actively spend, I still have like, I don't know, 3-4 Hot Toys on pre-order. So like, yes, I am spending it on Hot Toys, but the downside you probably have learned or will learn with Hot Toys is that, you know, you can wait a year after they announced to even maybe get it in person if they don't push it back even further. So it's a really long waiting game, and I have a really bad problem where I like instant serotonin, so I like purchasing something and getting it. So the downside of Hot Toys is that you have to be really patient, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna love this when it comes out in like 2024. So it's kind of hard to have that as your like main collecting because so much of it is a waiting game. So I would say definitely Hot Toys is one of my bigger collections, but it's not something that like I'm actively collecting just because, you know, it takes so long and it's so much money, and and there's a very few amount of characters I'm willing to pay that much for, and it just depends on if they're gonna put something out for that.
No, yeah, definitely. And honestly, Mezco's the same way. Some figures they'll have ready and, ready to ship within a week and stuff, but other ones, yeah, you have to wait about, a year to, well, this is going to hurt some people that have already pre-ordered this figure, but 6 years. Yeah, if you don't,
Years?
yeah, if you don't know the whole thing with Mezco right now is, well, they put up for pre-order a Batman 89 Michael Keaton about 6 years ago.
Okay.
It still hasn't been released.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's like a nightmare situation. I don't know if you collect any Mafex.
I just got my first one.
Okay, I didn't just, but I pre-ordered my first one, and I'm experiencing the wonderful thing of it being like, okay, it'll come out next month, and then next month comes, and they're like, it'll come out next month, and then next month comes, and it's just, I don't know when I'll see Doctor Strange sometime. He's lost in a different multiverse. He'll find his way back, I guess. So
eventually.
Can't speak on Mafex, so I'm sure it's great, but I'm just waiting.
No, I've heard that about Mayfix as well. But yeah, it seems like all the higher end premium companies tend to do that. But at least with Hot Toys, it seems like they give you about a year's out date, and they seem to stick with it, right? They seem to be at least
it fluctuates like a few months, but they're very good at least letting you know, like, hey, it's going to be delayed. Sorry. And sometimes they're willing to like refund you your refundable if it's things outside their control. Like, hey, we promised this in July and it's October. Yeah, they're nice about it.
Yeah, Mezco definitely has not released those non-refundable deposits for those 89 Batmans.
I'm sure they won't. It's a thing of pride now. It's been too long.
Yeah, at this point they're probably just gonna hold off until that's like the most perfect figure, because they know the second they release it, it's gonna be picked apart.
Oh yeah, people are gonna be like, this better be like 6 years worth it.
Oh, it's probably gonna be more like 8 years worth it by the time it comes out.
And round it up to 10. There you go.
Like I said, they might as well just spend as much time on it to make sure it's the best figure possible at this point. All right, so have you found any kind of like discrepancies or anything unique in terms of being a female collector in the toy community?
Yeah, I was thinking on that, and I don't know. I definitely agree. Where it's definitely, I would say, dominantly a male community, or at least from like, I don't go searching, so I don't cast that wide of a net. But from the people I've come into contact with, from the people I follow, from the people I interact with, definitely a huge amount more male than female. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm not finding the women out there. I don't know, but I've made a few female collector friends, so that I know they exist. But fortunately for me, I haven't experienced any sort of like stigma for being a female collector. I haven't had anyone be like, oh, you're not a real collector because you're a female. I haven't had anyone be like, oh, it's so cool you're into Marvel because you're a girl. I haven't, fortunately, no one's come to my page with that. And I don't know if it's because I wouldn't tolerate that behavior if it did. I'm not afraid to ban people. That's my favorite thing to do. I'm like, ooh, give me a reason. So I don't know if it's like my personality. I just, I wouldn't stand for that, or I just, fortunately, the toy community, from what I've experienced, is a really welcoming community. So from that regard, I haven't really noticed any sort of difference. Obviously, and it's just a female thing, you get some people that are a little weird that you're just like, all right, I'm posting about toys, so you don't need to bring that to my account. So that obviously I think is just it's just a daily part of the life of being a female. But for the most part, I was like, I really haven't experienced any sort of difference, which I've been really grateful for. So yeah, I don't know if it's just, I've just been really, and I'm not a huge account, so I don't know if I've just been incredibly lucky and maybe that'll change or what, but no, I'm just toy collecting, and so are everyone else.
Well, that's great to hear, and I'm pretty sure it's just the fact that the community's, nice and welcoming. Obviously, like every community, there's going to be those that you don't want to associate with that happen to be the bad apples in the bunch. But I think for the most part, especially like with me, starting this show, I just started it this year. I'm not like kind of like you, I'm not the biggest page and stuff, but I've reached out to, some bigger people and stuff and some actual toy companies as well. And I found that, all of them are very nice and genuine and kind, regardless of how big their following is. They're just people, and they're always happy to come and talk about toys because it's something that we all share and love and we can connect with. And, kind of like going back to what we were saying earlier, Instagram allows that to happen, we may have one or two collectors in our community, like physically, but in terms of like everywhere else, look at us. I'm in the West Coast, you're in the Midwest, and we're able to communicate and connect in this way.
And we have like common ground, we both enjoy Marvel Legends. We both love Hot Toys. It removes so many barriers. And I do think, the toy community is really unique in that because, I don't know if it's at the end of the day, we're all trying to return to our inner child, and children are significantly more forgiving and accepting than anyone. Or it's because, maybe at the end of the day, it's like, well, we're both collecting toys, so I don't think we have any right to like, get angry at each other. I mean, it's a very like sweet thing to like enjoy toys and want to collect them. And I have seen that really resembled pretty well in our community. Obviously you're going to get some people who are throwing fits over things that, don't really matter in the long run. But for the most part, we're at least pretty good with each other. We tend to go after the companies if we get mad.
Yeah, that seems what we're like the thing that we do. We ban against those things.
Which I mean, it's always good to keep a company humbled, but sometimes you gotta remember workers do not control everything.
Not just that, but like I said, I've had a multitude of types of guests on this show before, and I've actually had people in the industry on the show. And one person, he's had 25 plus years of experience working in the toy industry, for multiple toy companies, Mattel, Jada. There was one other one that he worked for, but he said that the biggest thing that he realized was the people that work for these companies aren't collectors. They aren't fans of these franchises. They're just MBA graduates trying to make money, trying to, do business and stuff like that. It was really just him and one other person that were real fans, he said, in those 25 years that he was working, So it becomes a shock to people, especially like I've heard, with like the Star Wars Hasbro team and all that. I mean, it gets to me a bit too because I'm a big Star Wars fan, and you can tell when they don't know what they're talking about necessarily.
Okay.
And you're just like, okay. And I think the difference between the Star Wars and the G.I. Joe is you can tell the G.I. Joe team puts time and effort into learning these characters and the franchises that they're working on, whereas Star Wars, it seems like they're just kind of just trying to sell and push, and they're just like, oh, they'll buy it.
Yeah. Which is a shame, it's like, this is kind of an off-brand comparison, but haven't been the biggest fan of some recent Marvel writers in the MCU because they don't watch the content they're writing for. And and it's the same with toys. It's like you're almost like, I wish this was, and you would think it would be like a requirement for you to like know about the things that you're producing, but it's not always that case. And it's a shame, but it's that kind of thing where it's like, all right, well, you can choose to be angry and bitter about it, that it could be so much better, or you can choose to be like, okay, well, at least I have what they're putting out. And sometimes there's the necessary to find a balance between it, but I understand that level of frustration, but at that point in time, it's like, well, it's it's outside your control. Then you turn to customer.
Exactly.
Then you get that's the way to go.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and move on to something that's probably interesting and that got a bit of a laugh from you. Your obsession with Doctor Strange and Wanda. What brought that about? What made them really stand out to you out of all the heroes in the MCU? What made you go, these are my characters that I
These are the ones
associate with?
I'll die on the hill for. Yeah, so Doctor Strange is like the weirdest one because I did not come into him in like any orthodox way. Like I said, I come into like phases where I'll get like really into like a certain fandom and I'll like just like be obsessed with that for a while. And so, I used to be like really into Resident Evil. And I don't know if you played any of the Resident Evil video games. I was obsessed with Resident Evil. I played a lot of, Devil May Cry, so Capcom. I was like really into Capcom games. And I don't know if you ever played Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I used to play, I used to show some of my age, I used to rent that at Blockbuster when Blockbuster was still around. And I would play that all the time. And I played it because it had like characters from Devil May Cry, from Resident Evil. And obviously it was, that was the Capcom side, and then you have your Marvel side. And I refused to touch anyone from Marvel. I didn't know what Marvel was. And I was like, ew, I don't know you, so I'm no. But I remember, like, in one of the generated battles, one of the enemies was Doctor Strange, and I was just so confused by him because I was like, how is this man a doctor? Because his only thing was that he did magic, and he was really weird. And I remember just being like, you're saying you're one thing, but you're not giving the vibes of the other. And so, like, it bothered me enough that, like, I looked into the character because I was like, what? How is this dude a doctor? He's a magician. And because I'm a writer, I'm really into fantasy and I'm really into sci-fi, and you kind of learn that, like, the two don't coexist very well, because if you're writing for sci-fi, you have to have, like, established rules. You have to be grounded in reality. That's how science works. If you're writing fantasy, you could just say it's magic, and you don't have to explain anything, and people are like, it's magic. So the two are, like, they do not mesh. And so I just found Doctor Strange's character really interesting because he was a man of medical science, but he was also a man of like the magic and metaphysical. And like my whole, writing has taught me those two should not get along, that just doesn't cross. And so I enjoyed his character just from a writing standpoint because, Marvel forced these two concepts to have some sort of common ground in one character. And it just made me appreciate him. And I, in recent stories, spoiler alert, he's back to kind of being a doctor, but not really. But for a long time, his whole philosophy was that, now that he can't be a doctor, he can still, like, heal the world through magic. And I was like, whoa. It's just like, that's such a heartfelt thing. So I really just like his character just because he's a, no pun intended, but he's a strange enigma, and I like appreciate that. And some of the early comics, I mean, I'm really big into Lovecraftian and horror and all that. Some of his early comics are really weird. So he just like really weird things. It works. And then Wanda, not to be like that person. I liked her before WandaVision made her popular. Now I say I like Wanda, and everyone's like, oh, of course you do. And I'm like, I liked her. It's like the Harley Quinn thing. After Suicide Squad came out, everyone wanted to be Harley Quinn. And I was like, I liked her before she was cool. But no, so I've always been into fantasy. So obviously I appreciate witches. Magic is cool. That's always been a cool aesthetic. I was raised in a very Christian household, so it was kind of my like rebellion where I was like, I like the witch. But I also just, I come from like, my family wasn't always the greatest, and I had a lot of depression and anxiety throughout my life. And I just always remembered when I think I read House of M, I just really appreciated that Marvel had a character who was like so powerful and so independent. Wanda has like some of the greatest magic in the world, but she still can't even like cope with some of her trauma and some of her anxiety. And like, it's like you can have all this power and depression can still like absolutely cripple you. And so I just thought that was like a really cool concept that they were putting out with her to show that she still struggles to like an extreme. And I just thought it was interesting that, give someone who has the power to remake the world and add anxiety, and like, how do they cope with that, And it's the whole age-old question, just because you have the power to do something doesn't mean you should do it. And that's always been like Wanda's mantra of like trying to find that balance. So I guess I saw like a lot of myself in Wanda. So just because of that, I've always, had a connection to her, and I've always been very protective about her character. So that's kind of how she came in, and she complements Doctor Strange very well. So I have two really good complementary characters as my favorites.
Well, I would hope so. Considering they just had a movie together.
I didn't like the movie. I'm so mad. Oh well.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't. Mm-mm. No.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about it then. Let's
Oh,
spoiler alert if anybody hasn't seen it yet. What exactly? Since you are such a big Doctor Strange and Wanda fan, what is it about it that you didn't like?
yeah. So surprisingly, this is one of the few moments where I actually like. I like the Scarlet Witch more in the comics than I actually do in the MCU. For the most part, since I was introduced by the MCU, I tend to like the MCU's portrayal. But Wanda, they didn't really use her well for like a long part of her like introduction into the MCU. And really wasn't until WandaVision that they gave her any sort of focus. And I just felt that Multiverse was a really weird turnaround from where we left off with her in WandaVision. Because in WandaVision, she was willing to sacrifice, her family in order to save everyone from being trapped in her hex. And she kind of realized, oh, I'm being a bit of a bad person by doing that. So I'm going to walk away and I'm going to, find myself. And then you get to Multiverse of Madness. And she's like, never mind, I'm going to kill an innocent child to get what I want. I'm just like, that was just... And I know they try to use the scapegoat of being like, it's the Darkhold. The Darkhold's affecting her. And I'm like, but we haven't spent time with her in the Darkhold to see that that's what's affecting her. So I think if they made a movie in between it to show Wanda's kind of descent into madness, so to speak, would have made Multiverse of Madness better. But the whole time I just felt like it was extremely out of character. And even them trying to say it was the Darkhold just felt like a weird excuse. And also they did not pay attention to Doctor Strange at all. They said it was a Doctor Strange movie and then he did nothing. And I was really mad about that. So he just ran. I was like, all right.
So do you think that they just wanted to have a movie with multiple characters because they realized that now that the MCU's into phase 4, essentially, they're not going to have too many of those movies anymore, of at least the classic characters that we've grown up with? Or do you think that they just didn't feel like Wanda herself could carry a movie after what happened with, say, Black Widow?
Yeah, maybe. I think Marvel's always been tentative about female leads with superhero movies. I do think there's still a stigma against, I don't think a woman's gonna draw in, the ticket people, because superheroes are generally more for guys. So I think it was kind of a, it's like, oh, well, people really like Doctor Strange, so we'll attach him to Wanda, but we'll still give Wanda a lot of content for the people who really enjoyed WandaVision. I don't know. I think the reason they made this movie was just because they had so many branches leading towards it that they just kind of had to. They were all, Loki was racing towards the idea of the multiverse. Doctor Strange in the 2016 even mentioned the multiverse. Infinity War and Endgame, there was a lot of questions about the ramifications of blah, blah, blah. So I felt like Marvel was backed into a corner and they're like, here's your multiverse movie. And I think it was too ambitious of an idea because now going forward, we can always use the multiverse as an excuse. So oh, well, why can't this so-and-so scenario, blah, blah, blah. I think my favorite question someone asked was why couldn't, since Spider-Man No Way Home came out first, which was actually supposed to come out after Multiverse in the original one. But people were like, why couldn't Steven just make Wanda forget her kids existed? And then they wouldn't have a problem. It was so, there's a lot of holes that Marvel's gonna have a fun time dancing around in the future, but I think it was just, it was the project that had to happen, and I think us fans had too many expectations for it, and so I think it was just a hot mess. Visually, very cool. I'll give Sam Raimi props. Creative, fun, visual movie. I'm a horror fan, so a lot of the little horror tropes, great. Character development, non-existent.
Well, and that's coming from not only a Doctor Strange fan, but also a writer. So, that's a good analysis of a film. And, I mean, like you said, it seems like Marvel's just been backing themselves into that corner, just leading up to this and leading up to this. And yeah, it seems like now it's just like every excuse is going to be, multiverse, multiverse, multiverse. And I guess we just have to be prepared for that at this point. But hopefully moving forward, it gets a little better.
I think so too, and I think they already created a hill for themselves with Thanos because now every time a new character is introduced, they have to explain why they weren't there to help with Thanos. So that's the problem of creating such a big universe. And I really hope, I think the ball Marvel's gonna really have to juggle with is that they're always gonna try to outdo the last threat. Endgame was such a big moment. They feel the need oh, we have to find a villain that's even worse than Thanos. And sometimes bigger isn't better. Sometimes you don't need to like blow it up to extreme proportions. Sometimes, as we learn, like a well-written, interesting villain, even if they have small, more confined motivations, can still leave a long-lasting effect. I'm the person who's really excited for Fantastic Four because Doctor Doom can come in, and I think Doctor Doom would be like the perfect villain antidote to Thanos because he's a lot more calculated, not so rash and brash. But I just hope Marvel doesn't feel that they need to outdo every movie that they're putting out. Sometimes they don't need to do that. So, what's bigger than Thanos? The multiverse. And, they didn't really need to go there, but they did.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like you said, it always has to be bigger and better than the last one in order to keep those Marvel bucks coming in for them, because they feel like, well, we've already given them this, so they're going to expect this, so we have to give them this time, and then it just gets out of hand. At some point, it's just literally going to be start to end of a 3-hour movie of just action scenes.
Yeah, and I think someone like they, I'm still the person who's still using Tumblr in 2022, but there's some good memes that come out of Tumblr, and one person was like, wow, I can't wait in 2052, I have to watch 300 movies to know why Honey Nut Cheerios is Spider-Man's favorite cereal. It's kind of like, it is coming to be that, like, level of complicated, so I have faith, they have it, they've done a really good job, but even if I don't end up liking where they take the phases forward, they still gave us 11 years of like really solid content. So, I'll still always love what Marvel did, but it's interesting to see what they'll do.
No, yeah, definitely. And like you said, they just got the Fantastic Four back. They just got the X-Men back. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do, what they can introduce, what new characters and leads they can bring, before they were having, single female lead characters, but now you'll have a team with a strong female lead, or
Yes.
multiple females in terms of like the X-Men.
Yeah, yes, I am praying. I'm not a big X-Men fan. Sorry to everyone who loves the X-Men. I'm really out of the loop, and it's really hard to catch up with how many volumes of X-Men material is out there. But I will say the one comic I did read was Dark Phoenix, and it's like one of my favorite comics, and I'm just praying. I would love one decent Dark Phoenix iteration. All of the storytelling is there, and I don't know how everyone has managed to mess it up. But if Marvel can bring a really good Dark Phoenix saga in the future, I am all for that. That would be a great, really strong female role. Jean Grey. Hope she comes in soon.
Did you unfortunately watch the Fox iteration of Dark Phoenix?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch.
I was really mad. And I think maybe that's why I don't like X-Men, because I watched that movie before I even read anything with X-Men. I was like, this sucks. Why does everyone like them so much? But I did really enjoy. I used to watch the Wolverine and the X-Men animated series, and then I think it was X-Men Evolution. They used to play on like Nickelodeon, was it? Did watch that, and those were pretty good. Pretty good.
No, yeah, definitely. Like they have so many stories and stuff that they can just play off of and utilize these characters from these storylines that it's kind of shocking that they haven't just, from just translated it from page to movie.
Yeah.
It seems like they want to avoid doing that when at the same time it's like, well, that's what the fans want.
Yeah.
They want to establish these new strong female leads. It's like you have so many to go off of that already are established. Just bring the fans what they want.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think they have like, one of the reasons I'm really excited for the X-Men is like, I think especially with this generation, they have such like a perfect audience for it because, the X-Men has always been a good metaphor for like, LGBT people or, minorities. They've always been great at like, the outcasts and the people who like struggle in society. So, I think, with our, our current generation, I'm like, the X-Men is such a beautiful metaphor that, I'm really, hopeful for what that brings. Obviously with Disney, I don't know what they'll give us. But, I think now is a great time for them to start, producing that. And it's like you said, sometimes, you can, interpretation is everything, but, sometimes you don't need to change something. If something works, learn why it works. And if that's just like remaking the story that was already be given in a different format, that's fine. We're not going to be mad, I promise. Well, I'm sure someone will be mad, but someone's already going to be mad, so.
Yeah, there's no way you can please everybody. I think that's the issue nowadays is everybody just wants to be pleased and the studios try to please everybody and in the long run it just ends up hurting everybody. And so they just have to get over that and just stick to what they got to do. And like you said, just pull from the comics. And like you said, a few people are going to be mad, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it will appeal to more, not only to the general audience, but also the fandom itself.
Yeah, and you should really, and I get the appeal of, it's the same with the toy conversation. I understand that, the toys are made for children with children in mind. Okay, yes, I understand, but but just like with fans, it's like, there should still be a level that is feeding to the people who are like really in love with the series or really in love with the fandom or really push out the money to get it. And so I do hope, that they keep, the fans in mind because, fans are really what keeps something alive. You can see fandoms in which fans leave and like what happens to like the franchise after, they kind of lose their loyal supporters and it's, it's never good. So I hope they keep that in mind.
No, yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. So are there any Marvel TV shows or movies that are coming out this year that you personally are excited for?
I gotta think. I know Miss Marvel's currently playing right now, which I have been enjoying Miss Marvel. Obviously it's not, it's not a show that is, speaking to, my cultural audience, but I really love that it's speaking to a cultural audience. So, obviously there's references that like I have to research afterwards. And I've never really been big on the Young Avengers. My favorite Young Avenger is never going to be introduced, so because I love Vision's daughter, but we're never going to get her. So I'm like, all right. Sad. So I really want to say I like Miss Marvel. I've enjoyed it, but since I don't know the Young Avengers, it's kind of like I feel like the boomer where I'm like, oh, this is my heroes. I know She-Hulk, I think, is another one that's coming out. I'm interested in that only because I really enjoyed Daredevil, and hopefully after spoiler alert, after No Way Home, hopefully we'll be seeing him sneak back into the MCU as more appearances. I don't know if he'll make a debut in She-Hulk or not. I only go there because they're both lawyers, so of course they must interact with each other. I don't know, but so I'm excited just because of that. Really, I also don't really know much about She-Hulk, but
So then you haven't heard the news about Daredevil then?
I know, isn't it renewed for well?
They're starting
have another series, whether or not it's yes, so I have, which I don't know. I love the Netflix one so much. I'm a little scared because Disney's gonna PG-13 it, and and I really enjoyed The Punisher too. And part of the enjoying of those is that they're kind of brutal. That's their thing. And
just a little bit.
Reboot. I'm just like I don't know. It's new writers, so I'm just like One of my favorite characters is Benjamin Poindexter, who played Bullseye in season 3. I think Wilson Bethel did a phenomenal job, and I know season 4 was originally going to be a continuation of that. It was going to be Bullseye and Daredevil's beef with each other, and I was so excited for that. So I think now anything they're going to give me, I'm just going to compare it to what I was imagining that is. But if they bring Wilson Bethel back, I will forgive a lot. But I don't know. I'm a little hesitant. But at least Charlie Cox,
Well, yeah, they brought Charlie Cox back, but not only him, but they've also brought back what's his name, Vincent D'Onofrio from
for
Kingpin. So who knows? Maybe they will bring others from the Netflix series over into the Disney Plus series.
Yeah, I hope so. I think I always butcher his name, Berthnall, who plays Punisher, Bethnal.
Okay.
Him, yes, I think he's been pretty, or they're in the talks with bringing him back as Punisher, which I hope so, because he did great. So yeah, I'm excited for that, but also I have a lot of concerns. But I'll wait. I won't panic just yet.
So, did you see Spider-Man: No Way Home?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Did you hear that they're going to be re-releasing it with some extra footage and stuff?
Oh, are they? Okay. Is it just to theaters, or are they just putting it straight to DVD?
I believe it's a re-release to theaters.
Oh wow. Okay, that'll be cool.
So yeah, it's something else to look forward to later this year.
Okay, yes. I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan, but I like Doctor Strange in it, so I'll watch it.
Well, there you go. I'm sure he'll have a little more extra time in there and, a little extra something to do.
Yes, maybe. Who knows?
So we basically got into everything, but what do you prefer more? I mean, I know the MCU kind of got you into everything, but it seems like you have a little bit of love for certain aspects of the comics. If you
Yeah.
had to pick one or the other, which one would you pick?
Oh, that's hard. If you had asked me this, like, I think a year ago, I would have said the MCU. But since I'm starting to like have some really strong gripes with the MCU moving forward, I would almost say the comics, just because I don't know, the comics have more freedom. The comics are always gonna have more freedom. You can kill a character and bring them back and not even have to say why. You just like people just accept it. You know, it's so I don't know. There's obviously the MCU rose out of the comics, so a lot of the strengths they have they took straight from the comic format. Obviously, if you're gonna quiz me, I'll ace the MCU and I'll fail the comics. I'm on a long journey of catching up with comics, but I've really enjoyed playing catch up with the comics, and a lot of them have really left long lasting effects on me. So I would say if you're a fan of the MCU and you haven't given the comics a chance, they're definitely worth it. So, and I have a feeling, you know, the comics were here before the MCU, and they'll still be here after the MCU. You know, I think that's so you'll have it the comics. So I'm actually gonna be on that hill.
Well, that's a good, explanation to look at it and a good way to look at it. So, one last thing though, you did mention, or I've seen that on your page that you've done a little bit of cosplaying, and that's something that I've noticed that at least in this industry or in this community, when females are into pop culture and Marvel and stuff, they lean more towards cosplaying than collecting. You
Yeah.
seem to have done both. What
Yes.
aspects of cosplaying do you enjoy versus, collecting and stuff, or what is it about both of them that you really enjoy?
Yeah, so I think, there's always a level, especially with toy collecting, we enjoy it because it's a physical representation of what we enjoy. We like the physical thing and being able to see it. And, toys you act out emotions on. Whether you're doing toy photography, you're trying to recreate something. And so I think the appeal to cosplaying is that, like, a toy is great, but when you can, like, physically become the person almost, that kind of elevates it. And I was a theater kid in high school. I did plays, so there's I have a strong love for the performance art. So it's really cosplay gives you the excuse to like be the character and act out the character. And I haven't gone to too many conventions, but like the few conventions I've gone to and I cosplayed at it's always really fun when you meet another person who's cosplaying and they're willing to like be the character and you can have like fun little interactions with them. It's almost like LARPing, live action role playing. You can really become the character. And as you know, with toy community, there's not as much stigma there. And I think, in cosplaying, there's a certain vulnerability to cosplaying because, we come from a culture, and it's changing. But, in the past, people used to like really give crap to people who cosplayed or to geeks or nerds. And it was like, oh, people didn't understand it. And we're fortunately really changing our way around that. But, it's fun to be at a convention with other people who are willing to cosplay and they're not afraid to like be the character, and it's a lot of fun. So I just think it's cool to like be able to like wear the costume and you kind of feel empowered in it because you're like, oh cool, you take on the positive aspects you enjoy of the character and you get to be them for a little bit. So it's a bit of an escapism, but every single hobby is to an extent.
Exactly, exactly. Gives you a bit of a confidence boost, right?
Yes, yeah.
So did you buy the cosplay costumes that you have used and done, or did you make them yourself?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I mean, my mother is basically a seamstress, and she has produced a daughter who does not know how to even put a needle through a thread. I cannot sew for the life of me. No, I have I am fortunately able to have money to pay people to do it for me. So I just buy mine. But I have friends who they make their cosplays, and I know that it's really worthwhile talking to someone who makes their cosplay because I know it makes the experience even more better because you literally physically created this and you're able to like finally put it on display. So I wish I could. I just buy it from people. I support small businesses. But no, yeah.
I totally understand that. I'm not artistic at all. So like when I do my toy photography, I cannot create dioramas for the life of me. So I have to purchase all mine.
Okay, but you do photography, and photography is an art. So if you are an artist,
No, yeah.
you're not an artist. You have a different medium.
Yeah,
Give
I'm
yourself
just
credit.
not a drawing artist. I'm just not a drawing artist in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sense.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't paint, I can't draw for my stick figures come out wonky.
No. I used to tease a friend in high school because she would always she loved playing a game or I would draw something because I'm fortunately able to draw and she couldn't So she loved making me draw something, and then she would try to like redraw it. And I always told her, you would have a great job at being the person who draws those really messed up pictures like kids in horror movies draw, because they were really scary. I was like, you have an art, just not what you think it is. So,
Go work for
someday
Hollywood.
that stick figure might come in handy. You never know. You can make a
Right.
medium of Hangman.
I'll sell it to some Hollywood writer that needs it for a movie or something.
There you go. Yeah.
So what actual characters have you cosplayed as?
So Wanda, obviously. Just her Age of Ultron, her end appearance one. With the costume we never saw ever again, which was my favorite. And I'm still mad about that to this day. So I think, even if you're not making them, they're expensive, and I live in an area where conventions are non-existent, so I haven't been to many, so I don't cosplay all that often. But I've done that one. I had a Starlight one from The Boys for a little bit, because I really enjoy The Boys. And then I had like just one. I had like an anime one in my weeboo years in my middle school time. So that introduced me to cosplay, but I no longer have it. But yeah, just really those. I just really do Wanda. I have my hill and I die on it.
Hey, do something good, right?
I know, yeah. I'm almost tempted to do a Sylvie, because people always say I'm like a Loki, which I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or not. I'm just like, oh, thank you, I'm a failure. I appreciate that. But I think she would be a fun character. I think like if you're gonna choose a character like cosplaying like a Loki personality type would be so much fun, because you have no responsibility. So maybe Sylvie in the future, but I don't know.
I mean, it's cosplaying. Why not just try out different stuff, see what works, see what doesn't work? You could always just try something once, and if it doesn't, work, you just don't do it again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then, since you said you don't have too many conventions in your area, are you going to be looking to eventually, go to like New York Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, Chicago, was that MegaCon or something like that?
Yeah, so I think my biggest convention I went to was ACE in Chicago, which is a relatively new convention, but it was a really good convention. I got to meet Jake Gyllenhaal there, which was like a golden moment in my life. So that's the biggest one. But obviously, I would really love to have the opportunity to go to like the New York or San Diego Comic Con, just because like I'm aware of them because of Funko, obviously. But because I live in an area where conventions don't happen, it would be just incredible to see a convention of that size. Because I know people who live in that area, after a while, you probably become like desensitized to like how incredible an experience or opportunity it is to go to those. It's just with COVID and like the ticket situations nowadays, travel. Oh my gosh, gas alone, I don't know when I'll be able to do it, but it's like on my bucket list. But Chicago's like the closest bigger convention hub to me, so if I'm going to go to one, it'll probably be whatever Chicago's offering.
Well, hopefully you're able to do one soon, and hopefully you're able to experience a big time, convention sometime soon.
Yeah, I'll be at the sideshow booth. I'll find them.
So do you think you'll expand on cosplaying, aside from going to, conventions and stuff? Because a lot of, aside from like toys and stuff, there's also cosplay pages and stuff. Is that something you'd be interested in, I can't think of the word right now, exploring?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe if my life situation changes where I can go to conventions more often, I would. I think my only hesitation there is that, like, and I'm not dissing the cosplay community for it, but, with, like, any physical art, whether it's photography, whether it's drawing, whether it's modeling, whether it's makeup, whatever it's cosplaying, it's very competitive. Like, even if no one outwardly says it, obviously, people who have like the better photography skills, who know how to do their makeup, who have the more expensive costumes, generally get the more, attention. And, and I'm always a little weary of that kind of like undertone of competitiveness, because I never want like my enjoyment of a hobby to be ruined by like that kind of undertone. So I think that's the only reason why, like, I'm very self-confident in certain ways, but there's certain areas I'm a little intimidated by. So I don't know if I would ever go into cosplaying just because of that kind of tone, but I respect and I appreciate the people who do enjoy it. So, I'll dress up for a convention. I don't think I could ever do like a page where that's all it is. But, every now and then it's fine.
Well, that's good, at least, like you said, you like to keep it as a fun hobby and stuff. And yeah, I think, if you put too much stuff or time, dedication into certain hobbies, it turns into a job after a while.
Yeah.
And it loses its fun.
Yeah. So that like there's a reason I never went into art, because I was like, I never want to go to like a day where you go into work and you're just like, I don't want to draw today. Like that would kill my soul. So yeah, there's a fine balance.
Definitely find balance in life and also in collecting, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and being the first ever female actually on the show and giving us a very unique perspective and, talking to us tonight. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day for coming on.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the conversation we had, and I hope to have you on once again later on.
Oh yeah, I would love to. And I know you have some more female collectors coming up this week or next, in the weeks coming. So, people check them out. I'm excited to listen to them too. Dominance asserted though. But anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a small niche in terms of like female collectors, but I thought, it'd be great to spotlight them and give them a voice and, see what their perspective is, because like I said, it's a very male dominant thing. And obviously it's like, well, yeah, we like these characters because of this and this and this.
Yes.
But it's a very unique thing. You came into it at an older age, you went just randomly with your stepbrother, and now you're a big time Hot Toy collector and Marvel fan.
Yes. Yeah. I surprise people because they're like, you're how old and you have how many Hot Toys? I'm like, yes, don't. Life savings isn't a thing I need to worry about until my 30s.
I totally understand that. Trust me. So thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, you're welcome to come on whenever you'd like, and have a great rest of your day and rest of your week.
Oh, thank you. You too. And happy 4th of July for those of you who are coming up on Monday. But I'll go and I'll let you do the outro. But thank you again for having me on, and I hope I can be on in the future. And we'll talk later.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your night.
Of course, you too.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 21 of Coffee and Toys Live. And thank you once again to tonight's guest, Angi. She had an amazing perspective on toy collecting and stuff from the female side. Like I said, it's a very small percentage, but there are a few out there, and it's great to hear from them and spotlight them. And so we will actually be speaking to a few other ones throughout this next coming weeks. However, join me next week for episode 22 with audience favorite Rocco the Great. He will be making his return once again, I believe for the 3rd or 4th time on the show. Super excited to have him on. It's always a great conversation with him. Always have fun. Always get into some very interesting topics. So definitely looking forward to that. But once again, thank you to tonight's guest, Angi. Had a great conversation with her. And yeah, guys, like I said, join me next week for episode 22 with Rocco the Great. And thank you so much for all of you that have watched live, that are watching the podcast, that are watching the replay, that commented live. I do apologize. I don't read all the comments. I try to stay engaged with my guests. I try to look down every once in a while. And so thank you for all of you that still comment, that like, and thank you so much, guys. Really, like I always say, if it wasn't for you guys, this show would not be possible. So thank you so much, not only to our guests for taking time out of her busy day, but also to you guys for taking time out of your guys' busy day to come on and watch the show. With that being said, guys, if you haven't already, follow me here on Instagram at CoolFigurez, and follow me over on Epic Shots by CoolFigurez, my other page where I post my more thought out, planned out, more dedicated toy photography shots. And also, if you guys are into unboxings, follow me over on TikTok at CoolFigurez, and also subscribe to me at YouTube at CoolFigurez. With that being said, guys, I've been your host, Jesse the Bat Madrigal, aka the Buff Collector. And as always, have a great fucking day.
Thank you so much for sticking to the end of this video. If you enjoyed those pics, you can find the full images over on Instagram at CoolFigurez. And I do also have a separate Instagram account for my more thought out, planned out, more edited pics called Epic Shots by CoolFigurez. Check it out. If you like what you see, leave me a follow there as well. And if you guys like unboxings, check me out over on TikTok at CoolFigurez. That's where I post all of my unboxings. And check me out every Sunday for Coffee and Toys, a weekly Toy News Toy Talk podcast where we will go over all the latest and great toy news, reveals, pre-orders, weekly toy haul, and so much more. And join me every Wednesday over on Instagram for Coffee and Toys Live, where I will speak to a new guest every week about toys, toy hunting, toy photography, and so much more. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to listen to me talk about toys. I really do appreciate it.